Hello, I'm Faye.
And I'm Becky. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about maximising your potential as a leader and living your best life personally and professionally.
So join us on the M53 for our weekly chats, full of insights and inspiration, and of course, a cuppa and a butty.
Faye, it's called a brew.
Hello, thank you for tuning in to meet me on the M53 today. We're going to be talking about reflection and the importance of reflecting on what we do, who we are, where we come from, in particular about our achievements. And it's Friday today. We're recording this podcast on a Friday in September. And I always post a post in my Facebook group on a Friday to say, what have you achieved this week? What are you celebrating? And I feel it's a really important post. So some people, it's normally the same people, rock up every week and say, well, this has happened, that's happened, and I'm feeling really good. And that's brilliant. There's a reason that I ask people, and it's not just about being nice. It is about being nice. I do want to know what people have achieved. But it's also to encourage my Facebook group and anybody to reflect back on the week, because we can often remember the things that don't go well. They sit in our mind, they fester. But the things that do go well don't fester in our mind. We go, oh, that was good. Move on. Next thing. What do you reckon, Becky? Do you agree?
Do you know what? I do, but I'm going to hold my hands up here, Faye, and say I would be a hypocrite if I didn't acknowledge that I find this really difficult to do.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm going to use my favorite phrase. I know all the things. Which I always use with a pinch of salt. I obviously do not know all the things, but I know the importance of reflection. I know why it works, and I know what can come of it when we do reflect, but I do find it really, really difficult. And I think it goes back to what we've talked about before, and I'm sure it will come up again in many other podcasts about finding it difficult to see positives in ourselves. You're right. Those negatives, they sit there and they fester, and the positives, oh yeah, great, and we brush off. And I'm great at brushing off the positive things that happen. But I know that when I spend time reflecting, and then I choose to act from that space, the difference that it makes, and it really is, it's outstanding. But I do struggle.
What difference does it make for you, Becky?
Well, I'm starting it from a positive place, right? So whatever task it is that I'm then going on to do, I'm starting it on the back of feeling really good about something that I've done well, something that I've achieved. And so I'm starting it in a different place. And so then it's almost like that momentum just builds, right?
Yeah.
You've got the ball rolling, and then you just carry it on. And before you know it, you know, you've really gained speed and you're flying. So yeah, that's the difference. I'm starting it from a different place.
Yeah, exactly. And I asked you that question because I wanted you to explain, because it's all right saying when I do this, it works and it's wonderful. But what are you doing, you know, and what difference does it make? You know, people need to hear that. And yeah, and it's so good for us to start doing something else from that place of positivity. We're in a completely different state. The more positive we are about something, better things will happen. Our brains naturally go to positive things. So those actions that we take become more positive. The momentum it's like a snowball. It does roll. And I don't know the science of how that happens, but it does. It's almost like we're attracting that positive energy. I'd say that's probably what it was. And I don't quite know how that works because I'm not fully into the energetic side of stuff, but it's definitely there. I've seen it, you know, so when I've felt it, I've seen it work for me. So when we're in a positive place where things are happening and we take our time to say, oh, this has happened and actually that was good, how can I replicate that? So you're replicating those positive things that you've done, and you go from there. But also, for me, we can spend so much wasted time thinking about what went wrong. And don't get me wrong when I say this, because we learn from we learn from things that don't go quite right.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and that's always going to happen. And we need that. We need to reflect on what goes wrong. Well, why did it go wrong? What happened? What did I do? What can I do differently? Is it in my control? We've talked about control before, but is it in my control? So can I do something differently next time? And we learn. That's how we learn. And we put different things into play. But when things go right, we'll often go, oh, that's good. Moving on to the next thing. And we don't take our time to reflect. Why did it go right? What did I do? What can I do again? This happened this time. Or just taking the time to feel the lovely feeling that something went well. I had some positive feedback yesterday, and it's really easy when you get positive feedback when someone says to you, that was good. Oh, I heard this was good. It's really easy to go, I just did. Yeah, it wasn't that great. I'm sure I wasn't that. And then it's really easy to start reflecting on it and go, oh gosh, they've said it was great, but was it really? Were they telling me the truth?
Did they mean it?
Did they mean it? Well, for goodness sake, why would somebody bother to tell you something was good if it was a lie? Yes. I mean, we don't go onto Amazon to review something that we've bought that was really rubbish and go, oh, I thought this was really great. We don't do that. So, if someone gives you feedback, take it and say thank you, and reflect on it and think, yes, actually, I did. It was a good job, and think about how you made it great, because there's so much blooming shittiness that goes on in the world. We only have to turn the news on and it's, 99% of it's bad news. We need to be looking, certainly at the moment, I just think with everything that's going on in the world, we need to be thinking of the positives and what we've done well and how we've contributed in a positive way to something that's gone on. And reflection will help us to do that.
I was talking to you before we recorded this, Faye, about I have a lovely little group of management apprentices that I'm working with at the minute. I've been working with them for about 6 months, and that's how long they've been in their role. And when I was with them last, I asked them, so what have you learned over this last 6 months? And they all kind of looked at me really blank-faced. And so I gave them all a massive piece of paper, a big A1 sheet. And in not long, they had filled it with a few prompts around, okay, what kind of things have we covered in our workshops? What new things have you learned at work? What relationships have you built that you didn't have 6 months ago? What company processes have you learned about? And they sat back and said, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Actually, I've learned loads in 6 months. Absolutely loads. I changed the way that I'm approaching the job. I feel much clearer on what I want to get out of this as a career and what I need to do in order to, get to where I want to be. Yeah, I've got great working relationships with this group of people who are helping me, who are mentoring me, who are teaching me. I've learned this at college from the work that I've done with you. I've got a completely different mindset. I now understand what happens with my beliefs and how they can get in my way. And I'm not letting them do that anymore. And they were genuinely gobsmacked about the changes that they had made in just 6 months. And yet, when I'd first asked the question, they all sat there, blank-faced. Not much. But because how often do we do that? How often do we actually take the time to look back and go, all right, 6 months ago, where was I? And where am I now? And more importantly, do that without any sense of self-judgment, because that can be where we get lost. And because we start to then look at, it comes in, okay, yeah, this has gone good. Oh, but it could have gone better. I could have done more with this. Or, yeah, I know this part went well. I've learned something here, but I've lost this client. I thought we were going to be working together for a long time yet, but they've gone elsewhere. That must be me. And in comes, for me, old judgmental Judy, for Faye, old negative Nelly, who they sit on our shoulders. And so, we have to take that time to reflect, but to do it without being self-critical.
I think, that exercise of sitting down and writing out everything that you've done is powerful. It's powerful. And I said to you when we were talking about it, I did it 3 years ago. I was working with a coach. I was feeling a bit of imposter in my space. And she said to me, right, I want you to go away and I want you, between our sessions, this is your homework. 11 things. I want you to write down 11 things that you've done really well or that you got great feedback on, when you were in your role, when you were doing this in your role. I was like, okay, gosh, that's hard. 11. And she said, oh no, it's not just 11. She said, the next day, I want you to find another 11. She said, you can have some things that are the same, but I want you to think of new things. So at least half must be new. And then the following day, another 11. And she said, and I want you to continue until you are believing that you can do this. And it took me 5 days. I still have that. I still have those notes of what I wrote down because I will go back to that place. It's a really natural thing for us all to do. We will go back to that place of, I'm not good enough. I can't. People are better than me. And I will read through, and I've got so many more examples that I can now add. But the why we do that is because we've talked about this before. It's because we need to train our brain to look for the positive because it will naturally go to the negative side. So we're training our brain to look for positive evidence because there's lots. There's always going to be lots, regardless of who you are. You're going to have a lot of positive evidence that you can, but we think we can't. So that reflection, what have I done? What's gone well? That question that I ask in my Facebook group, what are you celebrating this week? And that's another thing, what have we done well, but how do we celebrate it? And Becky and I know what Becky's going to say. She's going to say, I really struggle to celebrate it. And so do I.
Reading my mind.
I'm reading your mind. And so do I, to be honest. And I think culturally our frame of celebration is let's go out and have a meal and a glass of something nice. And of course, we've not really been able to do that. And we're probably sick of having a glass of something nice. Well, not sick of it, but we've probably done that quite a lot at home. So it doesn't feel...
Speak for yourself, Faye. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. Virtuous, but...
Yeah, that's definitely a word I would use to describe myself, Faye. Virtuous.
Yes, I know. But, how are you going to celebrate it? And it doesn't have to be through, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. But it is a case of sitting, understanding. You don't have to buy yourself something new. Go and, I don't know, run a bubble bath. Celebrate. Take that time to celebrate your success. Doesn't matter how small the success is. It's good to celebrate, and it will leave you feeling nice. It will leave you feeling good, and we all want to feel good, don't we?
I mean, it'd be nice, wouldn't it, if we were all walking around feeling good?
Just think about how different the world would be.
Oh,
we're getting onto big territory now.
That might have to be a whole other show. How different would the world be if we all walked round with a different attitude and a different, more positive outlook? Wow. Yeah, I feel like that's something that someone like Russell Brand would cover on one of his.
He probably already has.
He probably. You're right. He probably already has. Yeah. So with the reflection, Faye, one of the things that I find difficult is the actual writing down of it. So what advice would you give for people like me who I'm not a journaler? I would love to be a journaler. I love the idea of being a journaler, but I just can't get on board with it. So people like me who struggle to write it down, these reflections, the things that have gone well.
Well, who told you need to write it down, Becky?
No one. So great. No one tells you. But so often when I bring it up with clients, they go, well, I don't really want to sit and write a journal and I don't want to write it down. We automatically go to that space, right? Now, the thing that I would argue here is writing it down stops it from just floating around in our head. Because when it floats
Agreed.
around in our head, it can float away.
Yeah, I agree.
And that makes it more difficult to grab hold of.
Yeah.
So as much as I'm not arguing against writing it down. I'm saying I struggle to write it down. But as much as I struggle with it, I know that if I don't, it will just flow out of my head and I will let that thought disappear.
Okay.
But what else can people do to start that reflective process?
I think if you're starting the reflective process, then you start at the beginning, and that's to allow your thoughts to come in and think about something. Give yourself time to sit in a quiet space, go for a walk, do some gardening, hate to say it, do the housework.
Oh.
I know. That
would be like double torture.
Do you know what? Let me tell you this, that we all have to do some element of housework at some point in our lives. And
we do.
And sometimes, I have to clean up the breadcrumbs that are left. And when I'm doing that, I have trained myself to reflect on what I'm doing. I've trained myself so much, can't stop now, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I've trained myself to reflect. Because I've done that, reflection comes easy to me as an activity for when I'm doing other things. I can sit and watch a great movie and not take anything in because I'm reflecting on stuff. So I'm reflecting too much. However, when we go for a walk, when we, whatever we're doing, when we're ever in our own head, think about great things. Force yourself. What's gone well? What's gone well? What's really good? What can I do next that's really good? Get yourself in that positive state. However, I completely agree with what you say, that those things can float away. So I'm not a journaler. Never. I've got lovely notebooks that I've never written in, that I thought, I'm going to write something nice in here. I don't, because I don't write stuff down like in that way. So I would say just get a piece of paper and bullet point it. Just bullet point it. Or a great tip, on our mobile phones, if you've got a smartphone, you'll have a voice recording app. So record yourself, play it back. Why not?
Oh, goodness.
Record yourself saying stuff. And it's really powerful because it's in your voice. Writing stuff down is really powerful because the process from brain to thought to the hand process of writing are a lot of stages. So it almost sort of cements what we're thinking about. But talking it out can help as well.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, for anyone who says you must journal, I'm sure nobody says you must journal, but you can reflect in any way you want to.
Thinking about all the 7-figure entrepreneurs. That's like the thing, right? You have to journal. As well as get up at 5 o'clock and work out for 3 hours. But as well, just to add to that, when those thoughts are coming in of this has gone really well, I'm happy with X that's happened, I had a great session with a client, great session with a colleague, we got through this really difficult task together. Take it one step further and ask the why. Because as you said earlier, Faye, it's all well and good looking and reflecting and finding these lovely things. But why? Why did something go really well that day? What were you doing differently? Because that is what will allow you to replicate and to build on that behaviour and to have further success.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might not be anything you did. It might be how you felt that day. It might be that you got a good night's sleep. It might be that you liked the area where you were sitting when you were having that conversation. Or, it might be that you felt good in the clothes that you were wearing. And I know that sounds really daft, but it's amazing how we can feel different depending on what's going on for us on the day. So it might not be what you did, it might be how you felt, and replicate that, make sure that you're we talk it for coaches, we talk about having that mindset and that presence, and it is about being in an environment that feels good for you. It's about being comfortable in you, and when we're so comfortable in ourselves that we're not having to think about ourselves, all of our what we have inside us, all of our presence goes to our client.
Yes.
And that's what, and we're present with our client. And that's what makes for a great coaching session, for example. But just obviously it depends on the role that you're doing, but being confident in yourself. If you're doing something that requires learning something new, learn it to the point that you're feel competent and comfortable about delivering it, or be clear with your client that you're working with and say, I've only just started working with this. This is where I'm at. I'll do my very best. Be honest about stuff. Things like that,
Yeah. So for people who are listening, Faye, who, reflection is not really something that's on their radar, where should we challenge them to start?
At the beginning.
Yeah.
I challenge you throughout your day or at the end of your day, maybe when you go to bed at night and you're lying there, close your eyes and just ask yourself, what's gone well? What have I done that I'm really proud of today? What's gone well? Can I think of one thing? Can I think of two things? So you might already do your gratitudes. You might do 3 gratitudes a day because it's really, quite common. It's a thing, isn't it? People do their gratitudes. So as well as your gratitudes, what have I done well? What's brilliant about me?
Yeah.
What's brilliant about me? We don't often ask ourselves that question. And it's one that we will shy away from. But the more we use that muscle, the stronger it will get, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
What's brilliant about me? What have I done great today? What do I need to do better? You can ask yourself that if you want. But don't go to that place of, what did I do that was awful? Oh my goodness.
Ask it with that mindset that you're wanting to grow and learn from it, not beat yourself up with a stick about what you could have done better.
And that's a really great place to end. Don't beat yourself up with a stick. Think of it all positively. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Becky. Thank you for listening to Meet Me on the M53. If you'd like to know more, you can see Becky at questforest.co.uk and Faye at fayeblakey.com.
Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode, and thank you to Wahoo Media for our production. We'll see you next time on the M53.
Safe travels.